Hi, everybody, and loudest best friends. So, ladies, I am so happy that we are together tonight, and I'm so glad that you, Anne, in your wild and wonderful imagination, thought that this was the conversation we needed to have on this night in particular. We're not on the eve of destruction, okay? It just looks like it. It's gonna look like it. But I think that what we're also here to think about and talk about is how art and love are power that cannot be killed, and that we're just going to keep doing that. So we have a lot of things that we want to talk about. I wrote you all a little something, and then we'll go right into a conversation. So we're talking with two really great, and I thought about the two of you and why the two of you together and us together. You're two great and courageous women artists who have stayed the course, putting your interior lives, hopes, dreams, nightmares, desires, and explorations at the center of your work, even when you're working with persona other than yourselves. In both of your worlds, female experience and the female imagination are vast, wide, deep, dirty, terrified, exalting, decorated, exposed. I think of the great French expression, jolie laide, I don't speak French, excuse me, beautiful, ugly, both things at once, many things at once. The complexity of being a woman testifying on this earth to your human experience in all its contradictions. Though you've each excelled in different, sometimes overlapping arenas, the discipline, commitment that you display are fidelity to quest and vision, and that's no different. The curiosity is not different. The courage is not different to make art that looks at both the surface and the underbelly, the fleshly female belly and the bowel and the gut, exquisite adornment and ravaged decay, things that are growing and things that are ruined. What human beings can do to themselves and to one another, and in the face of that, you are each unflinching. I think that, we're at this moment, but we're exploring questions that didn't pop up yesterday, as Madonna's film showed us, and Baldwin, our beautiful prophet, reminds us, his words as urgent and telling as ever. I think that you both understand that some bodies are more vulnerable than others. Some human beings are more vulnerable than others. So as artists, what are our strategies? What are our tools? Not our weapons. What are our tools? And how do each of you in your individual, powerful, sustained, indelible female voices make work that creates the necessary disturbances that ground us in our humanity and make space for each other? The poet Auden wrote in his poem September 1, 1939, it's about to be World War II, I sit in one of the dives on 52nd Street, uncertain and afraid as the clever hopes expire of a low, dishonest decade. But then he goes on in that poem to say, we must love one another or die. We must love one another or die. And what he also says that I feel is something that both of you are exploring and exemplifying, he says, the error bred in the bone of each woman and each man craves what it cannot have, not universal love, but to be loved alone. So I think that in your individual explorations of love and intimacy, I think that you both understand that we are not striving to love alone, to be a sole object of desire. That is a dead end. Universal love is where we got to go, and that emanates from the self. And so the last thing that I just want to offer you both with gratitude is from one of my favorites, the poet Muriel Rukeyser, in her poem for the artist Katha Kollwitz. And she said, quite simply, what would happen if one woman told the truth about her life? The world would split open. So thank you both for splitting the world open. And so let's have a conversation.
Yeah. Where do we go from here? Ask a question.
I have some questions. One of the things that I thought it would be really interesting to think about, and we started talking about this, is making yourselves as women artists in the beginning. We talked about the early days, New York days, days of coming of age in creative communities where there are dancers and poets and painters and people doing all kinds of different things, and you made your own way in that, and that also so many of those fellow travelers aren't with us anymore. So I would love you both to talk about beginnings.
Okay.
Go start.
Should I go first?
Yeah.
Okay.
Please.
Well, as we all know, when we're young, we don't realize the preciousness of a moment. And I had no idea when I was beginning my life as an artist on the Lower East Side, and I was meeting on a regular basis Keith Haring and Jean-Michel Basquiat and Andy Warhol and many other artists that you wouldn't know the names of, but I didn't understand how precious and unique that time was. I didn't understand that, I mean, to me it just seemed normal. And to sit around a table with all of these amazing artists that we now know about, who are known universally, talking about reaching people, talking about listening to Jean-Michel. He used to complain all the time and say, "You're so lucky, you make music and that reaches so many people, and I make farty old paintings that no one's ever going to pay any attention to." And
Oh my goodness.
I think about that now, and it's just too crazy, right? But just also, they were both street artists, and they made a lot of political statements on the streets, and I felt like I was part of that movement, and it was so great to be friends with them and to commune with them, to plan with them, to do shows together without any outside influence. Of course, social media is so important now in connecting people, but it also, as an artist, it can sometimes paralyze you because you get really caught up in thinking about what other people think of your work and comparing yourself to other people. And in those days, we didn't have that. We really created in a void, in a vacuum. We were in this bubble of creativity and creation, and it was a beautiful time. So, as I said in my Billboard speech, I never thought about being an artist as something gender specific. I just thought, I'm an artist, and these are my friends, my fellow artists, and we're all working together. And I feel nostalgic about those days because I don't feel like those days will ever happen again. So
I was thinking about Keith Haring when I live right across the street from the Tony Shafrazi Gallery, and I used to see him bombing the streets all the time, and he would sit there in the gallery and sign caps and posters all day long, and I wanted to be an artist like that. And I wanted to make things that anyone could have. And no, it was a really different time. It wasn't. The internet has changed everything. Yeah, and it's probably progress.
Probably.
But what about, I mean, also many good things about the internet, but I mean, I think, what about, we were talking about how you had to walk around and find your friends. You go
absolutely.
up and down, and where were they, and hollering up and throw down the keys.
I don't think people get that. I don't think people get that. Now, we just text each other now. But if you wanted to talk to your friends, you had to get on a train. You had to go and find them. I mean, we didn't have phones. So I didn't even have a phone in my apartment. If I wanted to talk to somebody, communicate, I had to go find them.
You just showed up?
Bang on their door.
I had a phone. I had a landline. One of those rotary dials.
We actually have one in the museum. I'll show you later. It's not in the collection. We use it.
No, but there's something to be said for that effort. To go looking for something. To make the effort to every step you make, every block you walk, every mile you run, you are earning your connection with that person. You are earning your connection to humanity, and we don't have that anymore. Everything's instant. And so I think from an artistic point of view and from a humanistic point of view, that the instant connection that we have with phones and the internet and everything, I'm obviously, it comes in handy when I'm trying to find my children, but I do feel like it's also undermined our ability to earn things as human beings and artists.
And what about also on the walking? I'm thinking about the street, and you talk about seeing, people, what you see in the street, and how that feeds your work, and that it can go in different registers. It can be on the wall in the Brooklyn Museum, or it can be on somebody's iPod. It can be in places that are considered high places or low places. But what about the street?
What feeds us?
Yeah, and
I think in my case, all of my work is about the time I live in. So the street gives me lots of information. And also the way advertising works. And I think art that's really interesting to me has multiple layers. I don't want to see anything that's didactic. So I get ideas out of the breakfast I ate that morning, or when I'm in the shower. It's just this stew. And all of a sudden I sort of get a vision, and I just trust it. And I always went with my vision, even though I had people that told me it was a stupid vision. And all the ones that told me that I was a stupid vision, it's so interesting because they can see it now. And that's what happens to women artists. They can see it 40 years later. Like I was making what they called photorealism, but they thought it was really boring photorealism. I was told that all the time. And I was thinking I was so smart, I was making this conceptual photorealism. This is before you got to New York.
This is before I was born.
Yeah, really.
And so what about,
It was constant rejection.
And so what about, I don't know, faith or endurance or stubbornness? I mean, what's
Stubbornness. Yeah, there were moments where I thought they must be right. Did you ever think that? Your critics were right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then time heals that.
But you can't go backwards.
Yeah, but you can't listen to it. Because if you listen to your bad criticism, you have to listen to your good criticism.
And that's worse, actually.
And that's a slippery slide to get on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And artists get burned out if they get to the white heat. There are some artists that do, this is the art world. And we were talking about the differences in the art world. The white heat that you get, most artists can't tolerate it. There's a few that back off and they make their work from love and they're fine. But the white heat a performer, an entertainer gets, we are this tiny little world.
Well, I think what's been key to my survival is, strangely enough, the constant rejection and criticism that I've received for my entire career.
Me too.
Yeah.
Until now, they love me as an old lady.
And so how does that keep you going? Not everybody's made that way.
Well, in the early days when I first came to New York and I had nothing and I was broke and I was living on $1 a day, I just, I came from Michigan. I came from what I considered to be a very provincial, narrow-minded background, and what kept me going was just the idea that I could never go back there. I could never go back there. That I had found my tribe, my place in the world, and I, going back wasn't an option. So,
Was that your nightmare? I had some nightmares that I had to go back to Florida. Did you ever have nightmares like that?
Michigan nightmares?
Yeah, like, oh my God, I'm back in that house again.
That aluminum siding.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't remember any specific nightmares. I just remember thinking no matter what. There was one pivotal moment, and I talk about this. It was, the first year that I came to New York, and I was so open and so charged by the electricity of New York City, and I was there to be a professional dancer, and you know, when you come from the Midwest, you smile at everyone, you talk to everyone, you say hi to everyone. Everyone thinks you're a lunatic.
Right. In Florida, too. You wave to them across the street. They go, what's wrong with her?
Yeah. No, but I was so supercharged by what was the energy of the city and so innocent and naive in so many ways. And I did have a lot of crazy, violent things happen to me because I was so naive and left myself open and trusted people and believed that everybody had my best interests when they did not. And there was a moment, I remember I was raped, and I remember going back home and sitting in my room, and I had this very, very tiny bedroom, and my window opened up to a brick wall, and I had some postcards of Frida Kahlo on my wall, she was one of my muses, and I remember sitting in my bed, like kind of in a state of paralysis, like what can I do? What can I do? Like this is a pivotal moment in my life. Should I stay or should I go? Like, can I take this? Is this going to be my life? You know, and a dove came down through the you know, this narrow passageway and landed on my windowsill. And I just thought that was an omen.
It was?
That I should stay and have hope. And I did, and I stuck around, and I just got more abuse. Yeah, really cool.
You know, but there's something interesting when we first met, and we were talking about when you were first in New York, and you would work for life drawing classes.
Yeah.
And how betrayed you were when you became famous. People in those classes sold images of you to Penthouse, Playboy.
Yeah.
And every time there's a betrayal, every time there's an act of violence in one way or another, you get stronger. And it goes back to your earlier question, Elizabeth, and for you as well, the more the critics are forceful, or the negative forces are so present, you just got stronger and stronger as people.
I always said, they can't touch my mother, you know? And it's true, they just couldn't touch it. She toughened me up so much.
Wow.
Really? Okay. All right, well, I grew up without a mother, so I don't have that in my background. For me, it's... I have a theory that, and maybe we're digressing too much, but I have a theory that if people love you all the time and accept everything that you do, that's when you get burned by the white heat. You know what I mean? That's when you start believing that all of that, I mean, because let's face it, the white heat isn't really what your art is.
Never.
Your art comes from your soul. It's organic. It's connected to the universe. And it's got nothing to do with all the noise out there. And if you start believing all of that, that's the beginning of the end. And so if you never get a chance to actually feel too comfortable, in a way that's your survival. I think that. I really believe that.
It's dangerous.
What?
It's more dangerous than failure, maybe.
To be loved?
No, think it's going to happen all the time. You're always going to be, everything you do is perfect.
Yeah.
And what about also, I mean, this is getting to sort of constant reinvention, not for the sake of reinvention, but for the quest of what it means. I mean, in the amazing, amazing Baldwin, you know, what does it mean to be alive? What does it mean to live and to die? What's it like? So what is it, how do you think about, because there can be all sorts of noise for all kinds of reasons. And, you know, fame is one thing, but there are other things as well that make noise in our lives. Human beings make noise in our lives, or children, or, you know, people all around us make noise. And so what about making the space and protecting the space with noise to keep looking within to make something new?
It's organic, so You know, if you follow your inner voice, you're going to be fine. Don't you think?
If you follow your own voice, yeah, but I mean, there are constant distractions and tests. I think, again, like having children who are constantly challenging me and throwing everything that I've done through my entire career in my face has also kept me extremely humble. Because my kids are not impressed at all. They want nothing to do with any of it.
My students are not impressed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's. I mean, in many ways, that protects you too. The constant reminder of, like, you know, I always say with my kids, every day is a small crucifixion. So if you're constantly being crucified. Not only are you one with Jesus, but you're kept in check. And when you're kept in check, you're constantly asking yourself, why am I doing this? Why am I making this choice? Why am I saying what I'm saying right now? Is this coming from an altruistic place? You know, is this adding to my life or adding to the idea of unity and creation in the universe? Or am I being a selfish little bitch that just, you know, cares about instant gratification, you know, or getting back at somebody, or, you know what I mean? Like, it's you know, we are conscious humans. I mean, I know that everybody sitting here on the stage is a conscious human. And we all have created lives around ourselves that I think purposely keep us in check. So I do believe that
Staying right-sized in this world.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like a catchphrase. I'm not sure I understand that. Staying right.
Oh, you know, because I have voices in my head thinking I'm the worst person that ever lived or the best person.
Yeah, yeah.
So if I stay right-sized, I'm okay.
Meaning you listen to both sides?
Well, I could go either way sometimes.
Yeah.
I think, oh, go ahead, Anne.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say that in the, you know, to take us to this moment, and thinking about your film, and we were talking about how, I said, did you make it yesterday? Because it feels like it's made for right now, but of course, I think also what that tells us is that what feels like a crisis moment now and what feels unprecedented now, which it is in some ways, nonetheless, you know, these kinds of crises of people's inhumanity to each other. I mean, that is ancient. That is human history.
Yeah.
So I wonder if each of you could talk about kind of the long line of struggle and then the where are we now and what does that mean for artists?
Well, I would say that this is the most frightened I've ever been. I've never been frightened by my government before. I've been really angry at them. And I've watched, you know, Nixon, and I've watched the AIDS crisis and 2 Bushes, and this is like the first time everything is really upside down, and what I thought was happening was not happening. Like the most qualified candidate that ever ran was beaten by the most unqualified candidate that ever ran because of misogyny, baked in misogyny.
And so what then with your tools?
Well, I had a few days of grief, deep grieving, and the only way I could feel any better was thinking, okay, then I'm going to start doing activism again. And it took the burnout, you know. Okay, I found my like-minded people, and I thought, okay, I will just start taking notes. And great art comes out of this kind of thing all the time. And I'm finding them all the time. And everybody I know is going to Washington. And I say yes to anything. Sign this petition, sure. Join this group, yeah, you're doing a great job. And then I'll figure it out later.
But that's so important, that, yes, and that urge to be together and not isolate.
I really need these other people.
Mm-hmm.
But in a way, I feel like it had to happen. I mean, unfortunately, I'm just as horrified as you are, but I do believe that Trump was elected for a reason.
Yeah, I do too.
Show us how lazy and ununified and lackadaisical and taking for granted we've become of our freedom and the rights that we have as Americans. And I mean, I feel like people forgot what was written in the Constitution.
Yeah.
And
it wouldn't
they say it's always darkest before the dawn, and I feel like this had to happen to bring people together. Mm-hmm. So let's get this party started.
Mm-hmm. And so that is one of the benefits of technology at the end of the day. While it does impact, perhaps issues around intimacy, right? On the other hand, we are able to organize very, very efficiently.
Much easier.
Well, I wouldn't say it's very organized, but I mean...
Not yet.
Well, that's true, because you're dealing with a lot of individuals.
But the internet is good. Everything's connected to consciousness. Mm-hmm. If you have a high level of consciousness, then wherever there's the largest amount of darkness, there's the largest amount of light. But it all has to do with your consciousness. Mm-hmm. So the internet could be a really powerful tool to bring people together, but it also can be a tool that destroys people, as we know. So I think that at the core of all of this, and you started off this part of the discussion by saying, is this something new? Are you do you feel different now? Or I feel like history is just repeating itself over and over and over again, because our nature is to be several things. One is fearful of the unknown, scared of what we don't know, what we don't understand, and to react to that fear in some pretty disgusting ways. But also, once we have something handed to us on a platter, which is freedom of expression, freedom of speech, freedom to have ownership of our reproduction, all of those things, we take it for granted. And when we start taking things for granted, we lose appreciation, and it's just something, it's bread of shame. Everybody knows this. If you don't appreciate something, you're going to lose it. That's it. Mm-hmm. That's a universal law.
In the last 8 years, we were going towards progress in such a monumental way. It's almost like this last gasp of patriarchy just grabbed it out of our hands.
Yeah, but do you think people really appreciated that what we were doing?
Well, we still are the majority. That really soothes me. 2.8 million people voted for Hillary. That soothes me. And then when I look at the millennial map, there's only 3 states that would vote Republican. These are 18 to 24 years old. Mm-hmm. So I feel like that's going to be the future. Mm-hmm. And I think men are being proud to be called feminists, and I like that it's now inclusionary feminism, and I think that we have a new civil rights era. All of this.
What about all the women who voted for Trump?
That I want to kill them.
White women who voted for Trump.
Yeah, I want to kill them.
60% of white women voted for Donald Trump.
These women in the suburbs who think the patriarchies are going to take care of them. And I was talking to Gloria Steinem, and she says they've been colonized. And I thought, what a great way to say this, colonized. Mm-hmm.
I'm curious if there
but they're not
men in the audience, people who identify as men in the audience, who identify as feminists. Would you raise your hand if you do? That's progress. Mm-hmm. That's
why
progress.
didn't you guys raise your hands? You did?
They do. They're just shy.
I'm going to personally slap everybody who didn't raise their hand.
You're in trouble. I mean, men are starting, when Obama
Line up,
said,
boys. Madonna's going to slap you.
Well, we're both.
And the hands go down.
Marilyn has already stated that she's going to kill all the women who voted for Trump, and I'm going to slap any man who doesn't say they're a feminist.
Yeah.
There's a lot of violent talk here, up here.
Elizabeth, where does that leave us?
Where what?
Where does that
You're
leave
the
us?
peacekeeper.
I'll tell you where that leaves us. I was going to ask about the shirt and about what you mean when you wear the shirt. What is it? Why do you wear the feminist shirt?
Because I believe that women have the right to be treated with the same human rights as men. Equal. I mean, you could, equal rights for equal pay and all of those things. Why feminism? What does it mean to me? It means that we're all human beings, and we all deserve to be treated with dignity and respect. And that's it.
Yeah.
Male, female, black, white, gay, straight, whatever. But I still feel like the women's movement, although it's had its surges, I feel like we are still very far behind in, and again, I said this in my speech at the Billboard Awards, that we have been oppressed for so long that we still believe that we have to back a man to get the job done. And it's sad, but it's true. And I feel like in some respects in many respects, we're still in the dark ages.
But the millennials work together. The millennial women work together. Not like my generation did not. There was only one or two allowed in the system, and I see these young kids really work together. And that's the first time I've ever seen it, and I'm encouraged by it.
In what way?
They support one another. They don't I think it's almost like ingrown in all of us. Maybe it's primal, like the man who got the most buffalo, so you had to compete for that man. So we competed with one another. And so it might be this intuition. I'm not a sociologist, obviously.
Did you say buffaloes?
Buffaloes, yeah. Mammoths, the men were the gatherers, and all the women wanted the guy who got the most buffalo. And so I think that's maybe instinctual. And then I think that if that's even in us, we have to act the exact opposite way.
Counterintuitive.
And like when I see an artist that I love, I want to kill her, especially if it's really good. And so
she's about to kill.
I know.
I said tools, not weapons, but it didn't work.
Some of us do feel rightful rage at this point.
But what I do instead,
that's professional jealousy.
What I do instead is I go up to them and
yeah.
tell them how much I love their work, and I want to get to know them, and the poison drains, and then they're my colleagues.
Okay, so then we come back to what you said in the beginning, and that is, all we have is love.
Yeah. Yes.
At the end of the day.
That's all we do have.
Yeah.
And love trumps it. Hey.
Yeah.
Always does.
And love also, I think, takes so many different forms. I mean, there's, the love that two people can have for one another.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's just the beginning, right? I mean, if that love, if we hoard it, if we don't let it radiate out, if we don't let it animate our work, if we don't let it be a reason for doing our work, if we think that it stays in our house with our 2 kids and our husbands, then that's sick. I mean, that's not love. The love is too big to stay in the straight nuclear family in the house. It explodes the house, actually, if you don't let it move out into the world. And for people who are fortunate enough to feel like there's an art form in which to put that energy, the chi of love, and send it out, well, so much the better. So in talking about love, I've been thinking a lot over the last couple of years, especially about trying to talk about it that way, which is why I went on a bit of a tear just now, because I think that too often people think, love, 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 I love you.
Yeah.
But really, it's got to be bigger than that.
We've got to.
That's why, we must, not to be loved alone. That's not what we want. Universal love is a bigger thing.
Well, the press is always putting celebrities against each other, especially women, right?
Yes, I've been supposedly in a fight with Lady Gaga since she was born. It's absurd. No, they always do it, but you know, getting back to the idea of feminism and women's rights and women being equal and women who voted for Trump. I also want to touch on the subject of women not being supportive enough of other women. Mm-hmm. I think that's really an important point. I have found throughout my career as an artist and an activist that my biggest naysayers, detractors, whatever you want to call them, have been women.
I've seen it too.
Yeah, and I find that astounding that other women don't support me more than they do. And I think that goes back to what you were saying about being primal.
Primal.
That men naturally bond together and support one another.
They work as a team until they get to the top. Then they try and kill each other. We don't even get into the team. No. But the new generation is working together.
Yeah?
I see them meeting together, yeah.
Well, and maybe that's also where, the civil rights movement and the LGBT rights movement and organized feminism and literary feminism and cultural feminism and what it means to come up having at least a chance
feminism.
that you might have, some exposure to the ideas that talk about sisterhood is powerful, or that say your silence will not protect you, or looking at your pictures or listening to your music and feeling that. I mean, that there are sort of historical generational reasons that, could certainly be thwarted now.
Well, like I said, I see that feeling in myself. Oh, another really good artist. Mm-hmm. And it goes away as soon as I tell the artist.
As soon as you hug them.
Hug them, yeah.
I do agree with you that I think there are generational changes. The Brooklyn Museum is the first and probably only museum that has a feminist center. We have very strong relationships with LGBTQ, et cetera, youth. Thank you. We have inclusion and openness and welcome it's more than words for us, it's part of our DNA. And I see young people all the time coming into the museum and organizing. And you remember when we had your talk 2 days after the election, we had 1,000 young LGBTQ youth of color organizing and doing peace performances for one another and pledges for the future.
She kept the museum open that weekend free.
Yeah. So, thank you. So I agree with you when you talk about the millennial map being encouraging. I also, when I see young people, they're tired of our bullshit from our generation. They're tired of white women not supporting each other and white women not supporting women of color and fighting for the man with the buffalo or whatever the story is. Young people they don't
company excluded.
You got your own buffaloes. But I think that I hate to make generalizations, but I think they see it didn't really work. Like, we made lots of progress, but it didn't completely work. And they're coming up with completely new language, identification,
there's new language,
organization.
Sure. Yeah.
And some of it's very, very exciting. Some of it's a little alarming to me sometimes. And I wonder how old I'm getting. But primarily, I think it's very, very encouraging. And I think this is a radical moment. In your film, Madonna, you talked about revolution. You talk about your activism and finding solace and protest and activism right now. I think this is an interesting moment where really remarkable art is going to come out of this moment. And that we're... for better or worse, we're inspiring a new generation of thinkers and creators and doers. And it'll be interesting to see what comes out of this. And I'm curious how you guys are thinking about your art right now in this moment. I mean, it's clear from the film we just saw, for example, Donna, right?
Yes.
You can't really make an illustration when you're an artist. You have to... You really, one has to work in metaphor, because illustration is boring and it tells everybody what to think. And I think, some really powerful art comes out of metaphor, like Guernica or the Damier drawings during the French Revolution, or what, F11, that painting that during the
I
Vietnam
can
War.
imagine in a few years the Brooklyn Museum had doing a show on Dear Ivanka, but yeah.
Yeah. We were talking about that back there.
Do you want to tell us about
Yeah, tell people
Dear
about
Ivanka?
No. No, I'm kidding.
Tell people about
It's on the
Dear Ivanka.
interweb.
Well, the people that write Dear Ivanka are all psychologists. That's the interesting
Tell them
part.
what Dear Ivanka is.
Dear Ivanka is an internet, it's an internet site, and they're written by the HALT psychologists, and they basically, nobody really thinks Ivanka is going to pay attention, but it's written so beautifully, and it's just like, please pay attention. I know you're moving to Washington, so please don't forget. Don't forget safe abortions. Don't forget rule of law. And we made boxes, and we took them to where she lived, and we piled them up, and we took pictures. And there were, everyone made their own boxes. I made a box you could wear, and it was just these kind of absurd.
Your reproductive rights. Yeah.
It's just kind of, and it's run by a visionary, and I'm just one of the marchers, but it's. But I know how to make a poster, so.
But
We were talking backstage also about Richard Prince's recent action.
Yeah, that's a great piece.
He disavowed one of his artworks that Ivanka owns. It's called it Fake Art, which was so interesting, and returned the money he had received from the sale of the artwork to the consultant who had sold the work.
Because he needed to do that. Artists just have this need to. I don't want her having my work. That's the only way we can fight back.
When you think about, it was interesting hearing you both talk about getting away from Michigan, getting away from Florida. I can't go back, that drives me forward. And I think that so many people sometimes feel like they're alone or in the dark in some kind of way, and yet there's a burning creative seed inside of them. So if you think back to imagining yourself out and creating yourself elsewhere, what did you look to or think about or dream about that made your imagination open wide?
Oh, you want to take that?
wait, that's kind of a terrifying question.
Yeah.
What did I dream about?
So for example, you were a dancer, and you went to, what made you go to dance classes, or I'll let you dream. Let me let you come to it.
No, I was growing up in Michigan, and I was going to dance classes, and actually my dance teacher was, I guess, the first gay man that I ever met, and that I didn't understand what being gay meant. I was, 13 years old, and he's the one who introduced the idea of thinking outside the box. And I always felt like my ideas were too, I never felt comfortable where I lived, and I never felt accepted, and I always felt alone. And so he brought me to the first gay nightclub that I'd ever been to, and I don't know, I felt free. I felt alive. I felt like I wasn't alone in the world anymore. I didn't feel like a freak. And I think that, and he pushed me to go to New York. He said, get out of here. What are you doing here? And I knew that, I didn't think that necessarily I was going to have this incredibly long career as a dancer. I kept saying to everybody, I'm going to be an artist. I'm going to be an artist. But I knew I had to choose something, choose some art form. So I did. I chose dancing, and I came to New York, and I auditioned for Elvin Ailey, and I moved eventually from dance to writing music. But what made me dream, I just always, first of all, I had so many inspirational muses like Martha Graham and Frida Kahlo, and poets like Anne Sexton who somehow spoke to me. I always think of myself like Frida Kahlo. Like all of her paintings are self-portraits, and So I always think that's what I do. It's a self-portrait, and I put all of my pain and all of my heartache in every moment I've ever been betrayed, and all of my joy into my work. And I also want to just take this opportunity to say I feel like the luckiest person in the world to be able to do what I do.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, and that's really important to say, because I don't take for granted what I do. And I do believe that I'm channeling some divine inspiration. Thank you to the universe for allowing this to happen to me. But I'm not sure I'm answering your question.
You're totally beautifully answering my question.
Yeah, so I think I just wanted to be connected to all of these artists that I admired and looked to for connection and for guidance, and they weren't just women. Mm-hmm. You know, the reason that I wanted to play James Baldwin before Secret Project was because he also was a huge inspiration for me growing up, not just as a writer, but also as an activist. I feel like every word out of his mouth is poetry and is significant, and he speaks to me, and I want to be part of that world that gives people strength and courage through our work and through art, through creativity. I feel like that's what I was put on this earth to do. So, with
Baldwin, did you read him in school or? Yeah, that's interesting, because he wasn't. He's taught much more now than he was.
Yeah.
I never read him until much later. I read him on my own, but I didn't read him almost till I was getting ready to teach him, actually, because for so many writers of color, making their way into the classrooms took a long time.
Right.
And I think also we started to talk about, just with that extraordinary clip, just courage.
Wasn't that great?
Courage. Mm-hmm. Just being yourself and out there and putting it out there, and it shines a light for people.
Elizabeth, what made you start to dream?
My grandmother, who lived in New York City, and who lived in this little teeny tiny jewel box of an apartment, and it seemed like everything was magic. And hearing the bus and hearing the taxi cab and seeing the people in the street and going to visit her, and that she just looked at me with interest at all times. And so some of that was her. I also studied dance too, and that didn't make me dream, but that made me understand about discipline.
Yes.
And that, like, if you don't do it every day and if you don't work hard, then you don't get anywhere. And then if you don't get your face out of the mirror, like, it's not about being cute.
No.
It's about something much more. Cute is nothing. It's gone. And that has analogs in so much of what we do.
Yeah.
Don't even bother with the cute. And I think don't even bother with the cute. And so I think also being in that space where there were people who were freaks in different kinds of ways. People freaks. Who just made their way. Freaks together in one space, and
but
so
New York is that place.
Whatever, and a dance studio is that place too. And so whatever it is that you're feeling or imagining inside, there's a place to put it. And then even though, my parents never said go forth and be a poet, but they did say kind of go forth with purpose. And also don't go forth alone because you didn't get here alone, which was a way of looking back, kind of at history. Mm-hmm. So those were some of the things. And you, Marilyn.
Well, I wasn't an accomplished little kid. The only thing I could do was draw. And that's all I did. I drew all the time. To be punished, they would take away my drawing materials. And the only reason I have my drawings from when I was 9 years old and 6 years old is because I drew in flyleaves of books.
Oh, wow.
And so, it was like, It wasn't, I mean, I would be in the classroom and the teachers would come over and shake me because I'd be drawing all along the margins, you know.
Marilyn, we don't have that in the retrospective. We needed your 5-year-old drawing.
Well, you have them in the vitrine.
From when you're 5?
Oh, no, 9. The 5 one.
Just 9.
9, yeah, 9. I figure it's about the same. So I really didn't, I knew I was going to be an artist. I just didn't know what kind. And I thought, I think of New York as like the place for people, it's like another country. It's where you go when you don't fit anywhere.
Yeah. That was the case for me. It's so interesting. My parents grew up in New York. They raised me in suburban Connecticut. And every day of my life, I was like, how could you raise me here? How quickly can I get to New York? It's interesting how that sameness of suburbia is so stifling. And if you just want to breathe and express yourself and open your eyes, if you have any curiosity, it seems like New York is still the draw. At least it was for us.
Yep.
It was for all of us.
Yep.
So I think also with art, you talk about curiosity, you know, art that makes, like, people should approach each other with curiosity. Again, I'm thinking about this moment, and that what your work allows us to do is say, like, I'm gonna look. I'm really gonna look. I'm gonna look for a long, long time.
There's nothing I'm not curious about, pretty much.
And I think modeling that as people who make things, but also making work that lets people, you know, do that, like, looking, that hungry looking. Even when sometimes both of you are dealing with subjects and images that people could feel averse to. They could be frightened by, or that
they have fear. And I think fear is when they try and shut you down, right?
Yep.
I have bronchitis. I'm really sorry. And that's what we both, you know, people, they don't really realize that they just want you to stop what you're doing. Like, because we're saying, hey, there's something wrong with this picture, right? And they just want you to shut up. And in the art room and in the dance studio, you found people that were like-minded.
Yes, where you were encouraged to be disturbing.
And what about also the sense of, oh, these are the questions, great. These are the questions from the Facebook and the other places out there beyond this room and from this room. So actually, I'll ask us some questions from here, and then I'll go back to other things. I was going to have us decorate the White House as what we think Donald Trump should look at every day.
Oh, we did this exercise the day after the election.
Really?
Yeah,
I thought I made it
curators,
up.
yeah.
Yes, what should be on his walls? What should he wake up to? What should he have to look at? What should be on his record player? What should be, because it's a record player, what should be, you know, so we can meditate
Maybe
on that one.
Maybe we should give him a record player.
We should give him a record player. So here are some audience questions that are amazing. Why do you think there is less, is this true, actually, I would say, why do you think there is less erotic art being created by women than men? Do we think that? And
women were never allowed to own it.
Yes.
Until, recently.
Own our sexuality.
Yeah.
And if we do, we are punished.
People hate you for it. And I think that the internet has broken that wide open. And I think those rules don't apply anymore. But especially if you're young and you're working with sexuality, people want to kill you, and other women want to kill you. And I keep using that word, my God. They want you to
feeling a little violent these
disappear.
days.
They just want it to disappear. I wish somebody would write a book about it. When you're an old lady, nobody cares. I mean, they don't in the art world. They don't let you get old if you're an entertainer. But in the art world, you can get old as a woman.
Are you allowed to have sexuality?
Oh, no, but you can make jokes about it.
Okay.
like Phyllis Diller.
Yeah, like Louise Bourgeois holding, there's a famous Mapplethorpe picture. She's holding this giant dildo, and she's smiling like, oh, isn't she cute?
Right.
And what about, please.
But I don't want to make jokes about it. I mean, I don't mind making a joke about it, but I want to take it very seriously.
Well, I do too.
And when you make work that could be called erotic, do you think I am making erotic art? No. Right?
Never.
I mean, yeah. How do you, when you're in that space, or if you think back to works of art that someone, might think was called erotic art?
You mean like Georgia O'Keeffe or something?
No, I'm thinking about the art that you all make.
She was pigeonholed. Georgia O'Keeffe was pigeonholed.
Yeah.
I personally thought it would be really interesting to tackle a subject matter that women had never touched. Because I'd seen Mike Kelly, this is my story, but it's the truth. I saw Mike Kelly making stuffed animal sculptures and stuffed animal paintings. And I thought, oh, these are brilliant. He's this intellectual from California. If a woman artist made that, I bet she wouldn't get any attention at all. I was walking home from Metro Pictures, and I thought, what could I do that women artists have never done? And I was asking the question, and I didn't have the answers. I thought, well, I can't do softcore, I have to go hardcore. And I did cum shots. And I thought, now, does it change the meaning? Because I personally believed I was a feminist and I was a pro-sex feminist, and we were just a nascent group at the time. And I thought that nobody has politically correct fantasies.
No.
That's right.
And
That's up, people.
Yeah.
That's right.
And nobody talks about it. And I thought, okay, does it change the meaning? And the criticism I got, I was considered a traitor, and I'm still at clinic defense in front of Planned Parenthood. I'm doing clinic defense at the same time. I'm called a traitor to feminism because of fear. Because I was taking an abusive history and trying to repurpose it. And you were owning your sexuality, and you were young and gorgeous, and that was a no-no. Mae West, that was the only one before you, right? Mae West, yeah. And you never understood for a minute why people were so outraged.
Yeah, but there were many more of us who were very inspired by that, and then it created, for many of us, our own personal liberation. So thank you very much.
Thank you for that.
Okay, from Marilyn. At your last talk here at the Brooklyn Museum on artist networks after the election, we spoke about that, you mentioned artists banding together and having women's salons. How can someone get involved with this? I am an artist and have a great network of other artists and think a lot about organizing and getting involved. What advice would you give to younger artists? Both of you, I would love to hear.
Did you say women's salon? Or
Yes.
just salon?
Women's.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'd take notes and get together. I mean, it's not that hard. We did it in
Just
the
do
60s.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just do it.
Yeah.
There's no rule book here.
Yeah.
And eventually there's going to be an umbrella organization, but it's not there yet, where it's groups that are just like...
Remember WAC, the Women's Action
Yeah.
Coalition?
Oh my goodness,
Oh, you all,
That was
young
clinic
ones,
defense.
create another Women's Action Coalition. It was the best. You were there
Just
for
do
that.
it. It's very good advice on that front, I think. Do you want advice for younger artists?
Advice for younger artists. My advice for younger artists would be my advice that I've always had for any artist at any time, and that is to never I'm sorry to keep quoting my speech, my Billboard speech, but to be concerned and consumed with what you have to say to the world and not with what the world has to say about you. And if you can stick to that philosophy and support one another, then you can't really go wrong.
Right.
So that would be my advice, that we need to stick together, we need to support one another, and we need to stop giving a shit what everybody thinks.
Yeah.
And stop letting...
I want to add to that. The question wasn't to me, and I'm not an artist on
Yes.
stage, but I'm going to add to it anyway, which is young artists make your own scene. Don't wait for an invitation. Get your own shit done.
Yep.
Exactly it.
Yep.
There's a lot of power and freedom in that.
This was kind of answered. Do you plan on going to any of the sister women's marches? So we heard about some of the marching that you've been doing.
You're going.
Yep.
To
We're
the
all
women's
going.
march?
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, everyone's going to the women's march?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. That is wonderful. That
Is anybody
wonderful.
flying private?
I'm taking a bus.
It's going to be
on
a
a bus.
parking lot. Okay. From Facebook
You
user
grew up in
Dwayne.
Connecticut.
Fits
Not
you.
that kind of Connecticut.
There is an artist statement tomorrow as a sort of day without art. I didn't hear that. Day without art tomorrow?
No. Oh,
What?
it's the J20. It's the art strike,
Ah, okay.
in which it was encouraged for museums and
Okay.
galleries and other nonprofits to shut down.
Okay. Do you think cessation of art for the day as protest is better than producing art meant to provoke?
I think, people need to do gestures. But intellectually, I think about, that the guards and the people who work in the bookstore and the people that work in the cafeteria, they lose a day of work, they lose their pay.
See?
So it's some questions really don't have answers.
I don't believe in cessation of art.
Okay.
And can I make a promotion for tomorrow, which is that all day at the Brooklyn Museum, you can come and we are doing a reading of Langston Hughes's poem.
Let America be
Let
America
America
again.
Be America
Yeah.
again. And a lot of artists, writers are joining us, and community members, and we hope you'll join us and come and read as well.
That's beautiful. This is from Filippo Dadal. What does revolution mean for you today? How can we make a difference? What does revolution mean for you today?
Again, thinking outside the box. Never being complacent. Fighting for the underdog. Standing up for what you believe in. Never backing down, not being afraid of being unpopular, taking the road less traveled by. I'm sorry, I'm going to just start throwing out cliches. But this is the motto that these are the mottos I've always followed.
Start locally.
Yeah.
Start locally. That's where you really have power.
Start where you are and speak about what you know. And yeah.
Anne, do you want to add?
Maybe the word revolution isn't the right one for me. It's about a historic continuation for a fight for equality and goodness for all. And
But that is a revolutionary idea, unfortunately.
right.
So
It's hard to believe we're still fighting for things.
But I don't think it's a new thing. I think it's just a refreshing of what we believe to be an essential truth. That equality is a basic human right. What do you think?
I'm thinking, I like what you're saying about kind of the continuum of revolution, and I was thinking also, I've been thinking a lot lately about, being raised by very pragmatic, race justice parents. And so Trump gets elected, and my dad says, well, Harriet Tubman figured it out, so y'all need to figure it out. In other words, and you have the benefit of seeing how Harriet Tubman figured it out as a way of saying, looking back over time and remembering that people have figured something out in the face of unimaginable oppression and adversity. And so I've always, believed, and as a teacher too, what does it mean to look to those lessons and understand the historical circumstances and then say, okay, what do we have to do now? So I think, I'm with your kind of cyclical revolution, ongoing revolution.
Ongoing
and also with starting with the self. I'm also, really, who even are we individually? What do you do every day with yourself that makes you a calm, strong person to go out and be exemplary and
But
brave?
what if we embrace the idea that every day we each individually did something revolutionary?
Yes.
And that could be something small.
Yeah.
And it could be something large. But, just every day saying, I'm gonna do something that is not what's expected. I'm gonna do something that is gonna make a small change or a big change. I'm gonna think outside the box. I'm gonna act outside the box. And I just feel like if you got into the habit of that, it would just grow exponentially. And I don't know. It's like sometimes people say, okay, you change your habits every day. Like, don't walk down the same street, or wear a color that you normally wear, or don't eat the food that you normally eat. But I'm like, let's think bigger than that.
Yep.
Let's think more expansively than that. And I mean, we don't really have a choice. Okay, this is we hit the wall.
Yeah.
Well, and I love that. Such a great, Gloria Steinem. Her book was Outrageous Acts and Other Everyday Rebellions.
Yes.
Yeah.
Commit one outrageous act every day.
I'm so down for that.
And we talk about this all the time at the museum as, we talk about radical imagination, especially, with our education program. It's all about this pedagogy of radical imagination. And it's not what are we going to destroy, what are we going to build? How are we going to create the home, the school, the community, the society that we want to live in with grace and beauty. And so that the role that you play as artists and the role that I get to play as a person who supports artists is something that's very hopeful to me, because it's your radical acts of creativity that gives us all hope. So thank you.
And that also means, I think, it's June Jordan who taught me so much as a writer, said that you have to know what you're fighting against, but you also have to know what you're saying yes to, what you're fighting for, what you're moving towards.
Yes.
And she says, again, where is the love? What are you moving toward? Because, evil will consume if you let it and decide that you have to put up your dukes against it every day. So I'm just going to pretend like there's no Donald Trump. And really, actually,
Create your world.
In fact, actually, I forgot I wasn't going to speak his name, following the lead of the First Lady, because it doesn't belong in my mouth. There are other things that ought to be coming out.
Yeah.
So, and also, there are more dangerous forces than this one president.
Than the D word.
That's right.
That's right.
And if we really think about it, why was this? There were many reasons why he won this. I can't even say he won this election, because clearly that wasn't the case. But nevertheless, he is our president-elect, and part of it is about the future, and part of it is about the future of jobs. How do we deal with the very substantial issues of the fact that people don't have hope? They don't see the way out to their daily struggle to have a home, to be educated, to have health care. And, we just take a look all around us at technology and how, soon we're having self-driving cars, and of course, one of the biggest jobs out there is truck drivers, and we'll have self-driving trucks. And where is the future of work? How are we going to support our society? I understand why people feel fearful and are retreating. It's sad. It's unfortunate. And what do we do about it?
Go back to farming.
Local farming, that's a good idea.
We're going to run out of oil anyway, so we're going to have to.
Technology, there'll be jobs in technology, and there'll be jobs in energy.
I want to see your farm.
I'm not farming.
Okay, the last question from here is, what is your advice?
She's still trying to get a private jet to...
What is your advice for teaching creativity and feminism to the youngest generation growing up in the next 4 years? And this is from someone who's pregnant with a son right now, whose first president will be this president. So what is teaching feminism and creativity to the youngest generation?
Well, feminism makes sense. It's just rational. And everyone's going to be better off. And when Madonna said that, all these guys came out of the closet and talked about them being feminists. And, I think I mean that sincerely. It's just rational. Everyone's going to be happier.
Yep, I agree.
Okay, so I think with the questions, we're just about at time, but I wanted to invite both of you. If we talked about so many things, but if there's anything that we didn't talk about, or that you want to say, or that you want to leave us with.
put us on the spot.
Yeah, really. And we want to be profound too, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But you are profound.
Fight back. Yeah, fight back. Don't accept anything he does. He's not my president.
I think also we need to not, as you say, don't get so consumed with what you're fighting against, but think about what you're fighting for. That's a really important message to put out there. And, it's really easy for us to fall into the trap of hating on Donald Trump and, being, caught in the web of despair. But I think we need to just figure out what we're going to do that's going to make it work, that's going to help us rise up like phoenixes from the ashes. We're going to have to do that. This is the time. This is the moment. You have to look at it in a. I know this sounds really perverse, but he's actually doing us a great service.
Yes,
I see
Okay,
that too.
because we've gone as low as we can go. Okay, we just have. So
We hope is the
So
bottom.
now there's. That's true. I mean, that's true.
There's trapdoors in bottom.
Right. But the thing is, we can only go up from here.
Yeah,
So
hopefully.
what are we going to do to go up? What are we going to do? We have two choices: destruction, creation. That's it.
that's it.
So I'm going down the road of creation, and you're all welcome to join me.
That was profound.
Elizabeth, you have something that you want to share, a hopeful thought for the future, something from the heart?
I hear in my head all the time my favorite poet, Gwendolyn Brooks, and everyone I ever taught has heard me say this 900,000 times because it's the best thing and it's always there, in a poem that she wrote in 1968. So a lot is happening in 1968. And she says, "Conduct your blooming in the noise and whip of the whirlwind."
Say it again.
Conduct your blooming in the noise and whip of the whirlwind. So no matter what is swirling around, and the word conduct, right, is so fantastic. There's choice and there's agency. Conduct your blooming in the noise and whip of the whirlwind. I do love that.
Let that be our guiding voice.
Yes.
I want to thank you, Elizabeth. I want to thank you, Marilyn. I want to thank you, Madonna, for being here on this important, historic evening, at this moment in our country and in the world, and reminding us that it is radical imagination and courage and love that will, at the end of the day, win. And we are very, very grateful that you have joined us. You have each done so much to inspire us as individuals, and, as I said earlier, to shape public sentiment. And you've made a much better world. So we are profoundly grateful to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
We lived through it.
You did.
I lived through this.
We made it.
I know, I really felt that way.
And now Marilyn and I are going to do a little dance. Just kidding.
We were singing backstage.
We were singing.
See ya.